How's it going, YouTube? Patrick's Hits here, back for another video. So, ever since I've been doing One Piece, PSA returns every video, and this is not a slam on anybody, and I get it. It's just natural questions, because the commonality seems to be BGS, BGS, BGS when you're grading One Piece cards. And people, every time I do a PSA return video, people always ask me that question. It's not really attacking, but it's kind of just like, why would you use PSA? The BGS has all the value and things like that. So what I wanted to do is do a video and kind of my mindset on why I'd rather grade with PSA. Full disclosure, I have been grading with PSA since about 2017 when I was mainly doing like TCG cards and things like that. In about late 2019, I've always been a big soccer fan, football to my European friends and other global people. But so I started getting into soccer cards and F1, and I'd always dabbled with TCGs as well. But I started grading with PSA, and I just like the slabs better. I do have some BGS cards in my collection, but they're actually around 3, and I have, geez, over 1,000 graded PSA slabs. I mean, and I don't say that like bragging. I just grade a lot, and I have a lot in my collection. It's just the way it is. Now, I do have an entire backlog of probably, inventory of about an extra, 500 and so cards that I do sell. A lot of times, if you've seen most of my videos, you'll see a card being graded multiple times. I might grade, some of these cards, multiple times. So I hope that I get a 10, and then what I do is I can sell the others to help people get their 10 or whatever. So, because I've had times where I've sent like, one card of something in and I get a PSA 9. I'm like, oh man, I wish I'd sent more of that in. This way I hedge my bets. I get my 10, hopefully, especially with One Piece cards because they grade so well. With PSA and technically with BGS. Bless you, girl. That was my dog. She wants me to take her out, so hopefully this video won't be too long. Unfortunately, sorry CC, it's going to be a little long. So anyway, so both the slabs here, and these are the 3 BGS slabs in my possession, and actually kind of a interesting story. I did buy most of these around like when soccer was really starting off. So I did buy a BGS 9 of this one time, and I went to crack it. I've never cracked a BGS thing, and I actually crimped the card and ruined it. It was like a $2,000 card, and I think I resold it for like 1,000 raw. The person, I completely, I told them that, hey, that's what happened. So when I bought another one, I was like, I am not cracking this thing because I'm really good at cracking PSA slabs, but BGS are thicker, and it just, not very good at doing it. So these 3 cards, you got the Ronaldo, Messi matchups, silver, the Ronaldo auto, which is, I love, my favorite player, and he's in a Real Madrid kit, so a la Madrid. I am a Real Madrid fan. And then the Ronaldo. And I'm not cracking those. Unless I meet somebody that's like really good at cracking BGS, and then maybe let them have a go at it. So anyway, this video is, sorry for the long drawn out thing, but this video is about why I think that PSA, take away the fact that like whichever, like if you like PSA slabs better, which I happen to like them better for my collection, I would do PSA, but we're strictly talking about value. And in a nutshell, for me, BGS is if you like gambling on your grades. And that's kind of what the data looks like from what I've seen. So what I did is I took several cards that are pretty big in the hobby. I took the Zoro OP01, Nami. This is the pre-errata version. Manga Shanks, Manga Ace, and the Luffy Winter. Now, a lot of these are really early on in One Piece, and they did grade a lot better, especially with BGS, I kind of found out. But it's just going through all the data is absolutely, like, it's painstaking. And I spent like a couple hours today kind of after work and everything, just kind of messing around with it just to kind of see. So, like, let's go through them here. So, and not the thing is, lately there haven't been a lot of comps to some of these cards, especially Black Label. So it's kind of hard to give comps here. So let's just look at this card, this particular card, and I'm sure you could find examples of cards in One Piece that is going to be the flip side. And I actually did find one of those that it kind of makes more sense to do. So this Zoro card, you have 361 PSA 10s, you have 29 PSA 9s. 8 PSA 8s and 3 PSA 8s and 1 PSA 7, which gives you a 91% chance, if you're going to grade this card, to get a Gem Mint 10. That Gem Mint 10 sells for about $745. If you get unlucky, the 9% of people that do, sorry guys, and you get a PSA 9, it's about a $350 card. Now, if you were to grade this card with BGS, there are 24 Black Labels. There are 110 BGS 10s. There's 169 BGS 9.5s. And then there's 12 BGS 9 and lower. You have about a 7.6% chance to get a Black Label. You have a 34.9% chance to get a BGS 10. You have a 53.7% chance to get a BGS 9.5, and you have about a 3.5% chance to get a BGS 9 or lower. Now, the BGS 10 sells most recently for $577, which is less than a PSA 10. A PSA 10 sells for $745. The BGS 10 sold for $577. Weirdly enough, a BGS 9.5 sold for $550. But I kind of feel like the BGS 10, maybe somebody got a really good deal there, because it's not really normal. Most people think that BGS 10s automatically sell for greater than PSA 10s. They don't. That's just a fact. They just don't. And they don't in a lot of other hobbies as well. Now, do BGS 10s sometimes sell for more than PSA 10s? Yes, they do. And sometimes PSA 10s sell for more. Like in this case, the PSA 10 sold for $745. The BGS 10 sold for $577. Again, I think that's kind of low on the BGS 10. I just haven't seen very many of those sell lately. Now, I don't have any data on the Black Label for the Zoro because one hasn't sold lately. So we don't have any on that. Next one is Nami. Okay, so this is the pre-errata Nami. So I think PSA actually kind of in wave 1 there were up to, and there's 3 versions of Nami if you don't know. There's the wave 1, the wave 2 added up to one Straw Hat Crew, and you can tell because it has character here. And then the wave 2 and 3 got rid of the word character and still has up to. So it'll say up to one Straw Hat Crew type card. It just doesn't have character. So there's 3 of them. So I just pulled not the errata and PSA, which there is 331 of those. Now, again, be aware, there's probably some of the up to, the second version in there. There's 331 PSA 10s, 27 9s, 5 8s, 1 7, no 6s, and 1 5. So you have about a 90% chance of getting a PSA 10 if you were going to grade this Nami. The PSA 10 sells for between $1,000 and $1,100. I couldn't find any data on PSA 9s or 8s. There's just not a lot of them out there. But so now, if you were to get this card graded with BGS, there's 155 Black Labels. There's 435 BGS 10s. There's 29% 9.5s. And about 2% of BGS 9s and lowers. The Black Label most recently sold for $3,400. The most recent BGS 10 sold for $1,175, and a 9.5 sold for $765. So in this case, you probably have this is where it's not a bad gamble to gamble with BGS on this particular card, because whereas a Zorro had about a 40% chance to get a black label or a BGS 10, and if you get the BGS 10, it's probably selling for around what a PSA 10 does. Now, if you get the black label, which is an 18% chance, it's a $3,400 card. If you get a BGS 10 in this card, it's an $1,100 card, which is the same as a PSA 10. So with PSA, you have a 90% chance of getting a PSA 10. With BGS, you have a 70% chance of getting a BGS 10 or a black label. You have a 30% chance to get a 9.5, making your card worth around $750. So it's a gamble. You get the 9.5, you're losing $400. But hey, if you get lucky and hit that black label, you're making $3,400. So that's kind of the gamble with BGS. All right, next card. So we got Manga Shanks. So Manga Shanks, I mean, obviously a very popular card. In a PSA 10, there's around 448 copies of this. There's 39s, 4 8s, and 1 7. Now, something I probably should have said as a caveat, pop reports are not 100% accurate, because a lot of times what happens is people have a PSA 9, they'll crack it and they'll send it back to PSA, and it kind of skews the data. But this is the data as good as we know it. Since cards aren't serialized, like if I got this back as a PSA 9, I'd probably crack it and send it back in if I didn't see any issues on it and take a chance on getting a PSA 10. So it messes with the data. So just be forewarned when you're looking at pop reports. It happens a lot in the hobby. All hobbies do it, unfortunately. Now, I think PSA and BGS are trying to scrub out kind of more the serialized cards. So, but for cards like this, the pop report, remember, is not going to be 100% accurate, but it's the best data we have. So you have about a 92% chance of getting a PSA 10 with this card. The most recent sales were between $2,100 and $3,200 for this card in a PSA 10. I couldn't find any PSA 9s sales recently, so I would assume it's probably around 2,000. I feel like the PSA 10 that sold of this for 2,100, somebody got a great deal, because that's about the raw price on TCG Player. And if you grade this with BGS, there's 96 black labels, 222 BGS 10s, 313 9.5s, and 29 cards got lower grades than a BGS, like a BGS 9 or lower. So you have about a 14.5% chance of getting a black label. Where is it here? A 33.6 chance of getting a BGS 10, a 47.4% chance of getting a BGS 9.5, and about a 1% chance of getting a BGS 9. So you essentially have a 50% chance you're going to get a BGS 10 or black label if you grade this card. With PSA, you're going to get it. You have a 92% chance you're going to get a PSA 10. But with this card, and this is the gamble, you hit the black label, it's going to sell for $8,000. The BGS 10, most recent, was around $5,000, and a 9.5 was around $2,300. So in this particular case, and quite honestly, there's just not a lot of sales data out there for this card recently. The Manga Shanks seem to be doing better for BGS. But again, you have a 47% chance of getting a 9.5 or below. So 92% chance you're going to get a PSA 10. From a value perspective, you're in that 3,000 range. But if you 50-50 chance you're going to get a 9.5, you're more like low 2,000s. So, I mean, again, it's a gamble. You notice a theme here? BGS, to me, is more of a gamble. if you want value, because like everybody always talks about value. I mean, there's no way to get away from that. We're all collectors. You know, we want to collect things that we think are gonna, you know, there's things we love, but a lot of times for some reason it's just inherent in us. We just love things that are worth more money and that go up in value. Oh man, that card I bought for $1,000. Now it's worth $10,000. This is great. I mean, everybody just loves that. It's just the way it is. We're humans. Okay, Manga Ace. This one actually has an 88% chance of getting a Gem Mint 10. There's 396 10s, 48 9s, 4 8s. Again, the data can be skewed because people crack, send back. The latest PSA 10 sold for $1,750. The latest 9 sold for $1,150. If you look at BGS, only 23 black labels, a 4% chance. 310 BGS 10s, a 54.3% chance. 218 9.5s with the 38.2% chance. I probably should have been given the percentages the whole time as I was doing this. And a 3% chance to get a BGS 9 or below. Now, a black label, if you're one of those really, really lucky people, 4% chance, that's an $8,300 card. The BGS 10, which, you know, you have about a 54% chance of getting that, is an $1,800 card, which, remember, that's what the PSA 10 sells for. PSA 10, $1,750. BGS 10, $1,800. We're going to just call that a wash. And it pretty much is. But you have a 40% chance of getting the BGS 9.5, which is a $900 card. Which, weirdly enough, the PSA 9 most recently sold for $1,150. But I think what happens there is a lot of times, I didn't really look at the whether or not it had subgrades. So that can affect things too. Like on a BGS 9.5, a lot of times people will, you know, buy a BGS 9.5. They want to crack and send to PSA. They might get the 10. They just turned a $900 card into a $1,700 card. I mean, that, you know, a lot of people do that stuff. So that's the Manga Ace. Last one is a super pre-release, and I'm actually going to talk about the Manga Luffy as well, even though I don't have that card right now. The SPR Luffy is kind of weird. I feel like I might have looked this card up wrong because BGS did not have a lot of these. It was all PSA. Maybe people just think the red slab. I think it does. Like the red slab at PSA just looks a lot better with red cards. I mean, these are all red cards, so it's kind of unfair. But so this in a PSA 10, 347, 26 9s, 6 8s, and 3 7s. You have about a 90% chance to get a PSA 10 if you graded this card. The PSA 10 sells for $2,400. PSA 9, about $1,400. On BGS side, and this is where I think the pop report, like, it doesn't make sense to me. There were 5 black labels, which is a 4.8% chance. 10 BGS 10s with BGS 10s, there were 20, 19% chance. 66 9.5s at the 63% chance. And 11 ones got 9 or lower. The BGS 10 most recently sold for $2,480. Remember the PSA 10? Sold for $2,400. That's about equal. And you only have a 19% chance of getting the BGS 10. You're most likely at 63% chance to get the 9.5, which is a $1,500 card, which is roughly about the cost of a PSA 9 or a raw. That's the weird thing. PSA 9s and 9.5s a lot of times in the hobby will sell for about raw price. So keep that in mind when you're grading cards. Like somebody posted on One Piece subreddit the other day about should I grade my manga Useless Kid? And everybody was saying, go with BGS, go with BGS, go with BGS. I looked at the data, and it was like 90% chance to get a PSA 10 was sold for $1,400. But it was like a 70% chance to get a 9.5 BGS, which sold for $900, which is about what the raw card costs. So if you're looking for value, why would you send a BGS in that instance? Because you're more likely, you'd much rather, the odds are you're going to get a PSA 10 you can sell for 1,400, and with BGS you're going to get a 9.5 that you could only sell for 900, which is pretty much raw. You're actually losing money by grading with BGS for that card. So that's the gamble. But if you're one of those lucky 2% people, I think it was 1.8% that got the black label with that card, yeah, you're rolling in it. It's probably, at least $4 or $5 grand, maybe even higher than that. Okay, the last one, and I don't have this card, is the Manga Luffy, that came out in A New Awakening, A New Era. So 161 PSA 10s, 17 9s, and 1 8. So you have about an 89% chance of getting a PSA 10. Prices are all over the place on this card. Some were as high as $5,000. I think someone ended lately for $5,300, like someone just bought it. But most prices for this card I see in a PSA 10 are between $4,200 and $4,600. A PSA 9 is around $2,000. Now, if you're graded with BGS, there's 15 black labels, so about 7.6% chance to get that. 93 BGS 10s, 47% chance to get that. 84 9.5s, 42% chance. And 5 copies got a 9 or lower, about a 2% chance. But if you get a black label with the Manga Luffy, the last one sold for $14,800. Now, I'm sure that's going to go down. There are 15 copies. It doesn't sound like a lot, but in the world of cards, 15 copies of a card is actually kind of a lot. One, like if there's one card, yeah, that's, but so a lot of times the way black labels work is the first one out of the gate sells for a ton of money, and then subsequent ones sell for less and less and less and less. And then they just get kind of affordable and hit like a range of like $8,000 or something like that. I don't know if anybody remembers the Hidden Fate Shiny Charizard years ago, like when that came out, and one guy hit the black label and everybody freaked out, and someone paid like $10,000 for it right out of the gate. And then they started more and more got black labels. So there was like, I think when it all was said and done, there was like 50 or 60 of them. And every time a black label gets graded, it kind of decreases the value of other black labels, because the whole stigma with black labels is they're super hard to hit. And for most games, they are. Most sports cards, I mean, there's sports cards out there of like, that have been graded thousands of times. Like, I don't think a black label Michael Jordan rookie exists. It might. I don't know. But if it does, it's really rare. Or like a Charizard first edition. I don't know if there's a black label out there. There might be one. I think what's his name? What's that idiot's name? Logan Paul. I think he actually crossed he did like a review of a BGS 10 and it came back a black label maybe or something like that. But I think that has a lot to do with because it's Logan Paul. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot to do with that. But anyway, so with Manga Luffy, sorry, I don't have one. But like I said, 90% chance you're going to get a PSA 10 worth $4,200 to $4,600. You have only a 7.6% to get a black label, which is worth $14,000. But if you get a BGS 10, the last one sold for $3,700. If you get a BGS 9.5, it's a $2,000 card. So you have about a 40% chance of getting a 9.5 or lower, which is the same value as a PSA 9. So that's essentially what I'm saying with whenever somebody asks me about why do you grade with PSA, is because for most of their cards in one piece, you're going to have a 90% chance of getting a PSA 10. So the value, people look at the black label value, which black labels, to be honest, are, I get the stigma behind them, but it's a fallacy to say that a black label card is better than a PSA 10. There's an old saying in grading cards and buying graded cards: buy the card, don't buy the grade. Because even when like this is a PSA 10, but there's like 11% of graders that look at this card and could say that's a PSA 9. Is a black label of this card really better than this card here? You don't know. You know? They might be the exact same card in every way, flawless, and this card is just as good as the black label, yet you could buy this card for $4,000, or I'm sorry, $2,400, and the black label would probably cost you like $5,000 or $6,000. So that's why I always say, buy the card, don't buy the grade. Black label card does not mean that it is better condition than a PSA 10. A BGS 10 does not mean that it's in better condition card than a PSA 10. Now, there can be strong 10s and weak 10s with PSA. The most common thing that is different between, say, like a PSA 10 and a black label is probably centering. Because PSA allows for what, 65-35 on the front, or is it 60-40? It's like 65. No, I'm sorry. I think it's 60-40 on the front, can still get a PSA 10, and 70-30 on the back. But a BGS, I believe that centering has to be 50-50. I'm not sure. I want to say that's right. Somebody correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. But, you know, so that's kind of just how I view this whole situation and why I grade PSA. One, I grade PSA because I like PSA better. I like the slabs better. But from a strictly value situation, PSA is, in my opinion, the better grading company if you want to maximize your value, because BGS is too much of a gamble. If you like going to the the casino and playing craps and gambling and stuff, BGS, that's your grader. But for me, I'd rather consistency. And like my gem rate with PSA is like, it's got to be over 95% with One Piece. I've had cards that, like, if you saw some of my videos, it's like 90 cards or 150 cards in that last video. I got like 7 9s and 8s. Like, it was like over 95%, I think, of my cards were PSA 10s, probably around 94% or something like that. But anyway, that's kind of how I view it. I like to hear the comments, and I don't want people to get mad about what I'm saying here. I'm just strictly explaining why I go with PSA, because people do always ask me, why don't you go with BGS? BGS is better, blah, blah, blah. That's not necessarily true. You're chasing the black labels, and you're paying more for black label cards that might not be better cards than a PSA 10. That's just the plain fact of it. So anyways, I'd love to hear the comments. Love to hear what you guys think. I'm sure some people are going to get their feathers ruffled by me saying this, and I'm sure you could find plenty of pop report data that it makes more sense to do the BGS. I kind of feel like early One Piece kind of did grade better for like black labels and stuff, but it seems like lately they're not giving out as many black labels as they used to with One Piece. But I just don't have time to sift through all the data. So anyways, that's kind of my thought process. I'd love to hear your thought process. Please put any comments below, and like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye.